How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Ches, Daf 18 of masechta Avodah Zarah. Friends, Daf 18 is going to be a good one. And Daf 18, some very interesting stuff. So we are in the middle right now of the story of when Rabbi Elazar ben Prata and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon were arrested by the evil Roman authorities. And Rabbi Elazar ben Prata was ultimately released, whereas Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon was killed. And we are going to learn today of the story of his killing and what happened to the rest of his family. And that leads to the mission that Rabbi Meir goes upon to save his sister-in-law, and the, I think, well-known phrase, Eloha de Meir aneini, and the story of that miraculous phrase that people still say to this day, and some other agaritas. So here we go, jumping in to Daf Yud Ches of masechta Avodah Zarah. Here we go. Okie dokie. We're going to start on Daf Yud Zayin Amid Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Asur Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. Okay. So now they brought in Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon for his court appearance. They said to him, how come you were studying the Holy Torah? He says to them, well, it's a mitzvah. I have a mitzvah to study Torah, so I was studying Torah as God, as Hashem, my God, commanded me. Miad goes through all of the sreifa. So they said, all right, you are going to be burnt to death. Val ishto la'ariga, and they condemned his wife to be killed. Val bito leishev b'kubish shel zonis, and that his daughter, at least one of his daughters, was forced into prostitution. All of the sreifa, they condemned Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon to be burned because because he would pronounce God's name in its letters. Rashi says that he was somehow utilizing the 42-letter name of God. How could he have done this? How could Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon have been being Hoges Hashem if we learned in a Mishnah, Masechta Sanhedrin, that the following are the people that do not have a portion in the world to come? Somebody says that the Holy Torah does not come from the heavens, or that the resurrection of the dead is not a biblical thing. Abishol Omer, and says Abishol, Af, Hahoges Hashem Bos Yosef, also somebody who enunciates, I guess, God's name. So how could Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon have been doing this? It's one of the things that you shouldn't be doing. L'Islamid of it. Well, he did it in order to learn, not in order, to use the name in some inappropriate way, but rather to learn. Because the Tanya is learning the Brisa, lo silmad lasos, right? As the pasuk says by Avodah Zarah, it says, don't learn in order to do, but you can, even Avodah Zarah, you can learn in order to understand, in order to know what you shouldn't do. So therefore, to learn, there's no problem with that, as long as you don't do. So therefore, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, he was just kind of learning about, learning the name of God. My time ianish. But if that's the case, that he was just learning the name of God, but not using it in some kind of unallowed way, then why was he punished then? Mishum hogas Hashem b'faresya dehave. Because he was doing this in public, and he shouldn't have been doing this in public. Ve'al ishto la'ariga, and they condemned his wife to also be killed, maybe with a sword or something, not burned. Delo micha, because she did not protest against her husband. From here they say, anybody who is able to protest and does not, nenash olav is punished. And that they forced one of his daughters into prostitution. That one time that daughter was walking in front of the great people of Rome, and these Roman notables noted how beautiful her steps were. And in response, she started paying attention and focusing on how she walked. Okay, and I guess she shouldn't have done that. V'hainu damer Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, this is what Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says. What does the pasuk mean? Avon akevai yisubeni, that the sin of my heels surround me. Avon shadal dosh ba'akevav ba'olam hazeh, that the sins that a person, I guess the context of this is like, does with his feet or with their feet, such as Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan's daughter paying attention to how she walks, are kind of present on the day of judgment. Now listen to this, Chaver, listen to this. At the time that the three of them were being taken out, two of them to death, one of them to forced prostitution, Tzadku aleim es hadin, they did tziduk hadin, they accepted upon themselves the righteousness of the judgment of God. Who amar? Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan said, that the rock, his actions are whole, are complete, are perfect. V'ishto amra, and his wife said, Ke'elemuna ve'ein ovel. He's a God of belief and there is no crookedness. Bito amra, and his daughter said, Dola eitza v'rova alilia, the one great of, I guess, advice and, I don't know, doings. Asher einecha p'kuchos akol darchei v'gomer ish, right? And it says, right, what is it? Akol darchei b'nei adam, lo says leish kedracha v'chifrima alulav. So basically, all three of them accepted this upon themselves. They went to their punishments in complete faith in God. Wow. Rebbe commented on this. Kama gedolim tzadikim alalu. How great are these tzadikim? Shenizdamnu loin shalosh mikros shel tziduk hadin b'shas tziduk hadin. That at the time that it was appropriate to accept upon themselves the judgment, i.e., when they were being taken out to their horrible punishments. I don't even know if punishment is like the right word. That implies that like they did something punishable in some ways. But anyways, they were focused and they were able to, and they had emunah, they still believed in God, they were unwavering, unshaking, and they accepted upon themselves the din. Wow. Tana Rabbana, the rabbis talk, Shechala Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, when Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was sick, Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan the Vakru, Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan went to visit Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. Amalo, Chanina Achi, and Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says to Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan, he says, Chanina, my brother, why are you challenging the system? The Romans decreed not to learn Torah, just go with it. Why are you fighting them? Just accept it. Again, don't you know, aren't you aware that this nation, the Romans, they were sent from the heavens, that the Romans destroyed, that they were allowed to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem sent them to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. And they burnt his sanctuary, Vargas Chasidah, and killed the pious, the Avda, as Tovav and got rid of the good ones. But aneini kayemis, and it's still here. Don't you realize that, this is a decree from God? Just accept it. I've heard about you, Chanina, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. Shata Yoshev Osik Batorah, that you're sitting and you're studying the Torah even though they said not to. Umakil kilos barabim, and you're gathering congregations in public to study Torah. V'sefer Torah munach l'cha b'chekecho, and the holy Sefer Torah is lying on your lap, or maybe even bosom. Omelo min hashamayim yirachmu. What's Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion's response? Oy, Hashem Yishmor, Hashem Yirachim. Omelo, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma responds, Ani omer l'cha dvarim shel tam. I am telling you logical things that make sense. But to omerli min hashamayim yirachmu, and you're saying Hashem Yirachim, Kilu, right? Hashem Yirachim is not logical. I'm telling you logical stuff. There's this evil Roman Empire that's destroyed our Beis Hamikdash, killed good people. They're saying don't study Torah. It's from God. It's Xera from Shemayim. Just accept it. Why are you fighting it? Why are you teaching Torah in public against the Romans? And instead of giving a logical response, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon says, Oy, Hashem Yirachim. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says, what is this? I'm telling you logical things, and you're not engaging. You're just saying Hashem Yirachim. Tameya ani. And Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says the following fateful words: I would be surprised im lo yisifru oscha, they won't burn you, Sefer Torah ba'esh, and the holy Sefer Torah in fire. Omar lo Rebbe mani l'chayo alam haba, and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon says to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, will I have a portion of the world to come? Omar lo klumaisa b'liodcha, and Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma says to Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, well, has there, I don't know, is there some kind of story you could tell me? I don't know. Amar lo molish al Purim nischafli molish al tzedakah. Well, so Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon mentions this anecdote that we mentioned yesterday, that, well, it just so happened that it was Purim and I had set aside money for Sudas Purim, but it got mixed up with the tzedakah collection for the poor people, and I ended up giving away my Sudas Purim for the poor people, but instead of taking it from the collection to pay myself back, I just added more tzedakah, and I gave it out to the poor people. Meaning I should have used I should have used the proper money, give from the, poor people's fund to the poor people. But I made a mistake. I gave from the Purim fund, but even so I didn't pay myself back from the poor people fund, I just gave more tzedakah. Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was impressed sufficiently, and he says, if so, michalkecha yu chalki. Wow, I only wish that my portion can be from your, like with you, I guess, migarelcha yi gorali, and from your lot should be my lot. It sounds like Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma was impressed by this, and I guess the short answer is yes, you will have a portion in the world to come. Okay. And then shortly after that visit, remember Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma had somewhat predicted, right, that they were going to burn you and the Sefer Torah, and it was shortly after that. Shortly after that, Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma died. And all of the notables of Rome went to Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma's funeral. Vispidu esped gadol, and they eulogized him, a great eulogy. And on their way back from Rome, Mitza'ud Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, they found Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon Shayoshev Osik Batorah, that he was sitting and toiling in the Holy Torah. Makil Kilos Barabim, and he was gathering communities, gathering groups in public to study Torah. Sefer Torah Munach Lo Becheko, and there was a Sefer Torah lying. What's a cheko? Is a cheko a bosom or a lap? Let's see. Can it be both? Let's see. In his lap. Okay, so what's bosom? I don't know. Aviyu v'karchu b'sefer Torah. So what did they do? These notables who, ironically, were just on the way back from this big levaya for Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma. They found Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon studying Torah. They took him. They brought him v'karchu b'sefer Torah, and they wrapped him in the Torah scroll. V'kifua b'chaviles moris, and wrapped him with grape branches. V'itzisu bo'enes ha'or, and they lit a fire. V'viu sfugin shel tzemer v'shrom b'amoyim, and then in a very what's the word, abusive, it's probably a much more appropriate word than abusive, but let's settle with that. A very abusive manner, they took sort of wool, which is kind of spongy and absorbent, v'shrom b'amoyim, and they soaked them in water, v'yenichom alibo, and placed them on Chanina ben Teradion's heart, k'dei shelo teitzei nishmaso mehera, so that he will not die quickly. He will have a prolonged and agonizing death. Amar lo bito, and Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion's daughter says to him, Abba, erech b'chach, do I need to see you like this? Oh my Lord, he says to her, Ilmali ani nisrafti levadi ayadavar koshali. And he says, look, if I was just being burnt alone, it would be even more difficult for me. But I'm being burnt together with God's holy Torah. Whoever is going, right, God who is going to seek out the disgrace of the Sefer Torah will also, seek retribution for my own disgrace as well. Amrlo Tamidav. And Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion's student said to him, Rebbe Ma'ataroeh, what do you see? Amrloen, and he replied, Gilyon Nisrafin the Osius Porchis. I see that the empty space of the Torah scroll, that is what's being burnt. But the letters of the Holy Torah, they are flying in the air. And then they advised Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon to open up your mouth so that the fire can enter and you'll die quicker. It doesn't have to be this agonizing Amrullah. And he says that Mutov she'idlena mishna nosna. Better that God who gave me my soul should take my soul. Ve'ein yichabalu be'atzmo, rather than me, hurting myself by my own doing. Sort of explicitly, deliberately bringing upon my death. Klatstuniri, and then his executioner says to him, Rebbe, im ani marve b'shaleves v'notel svugen shel tzemer me'al libecho. If I increase the flames and remove the wet sponge from your heart, so that you will die quicker, ata miviedi l'chaya olam haba, will you bring me to the life of the world to come? Amar lohein. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon says, yes, I will take you with me to Olam Haba. Hishavali, the executioner says, swear to me. Nishba lo, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon swore to him. Miad hirbe b'shal eves v'notel svugin shel tzemer me'al libo. So the executioner did that. He increased the heat of the flames and he removed the wool from Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon's heart. V'yotze nishmasu b'mheira. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon then died quickly. His soul left his body quickly. Afu kafatz v'nofal l'soch ha'or, and then the executioner then jumped in after him into the fire. Yotza ba'askol ve'amra, and a heavenly voice emanated and said, Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, vikal klatstuniri, mizubanan in l'chai ha'olam haba. That both Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon, as well as the executioner, are welcomed in to the world to come. Bacha Rebbe v'Omar, Rebbe cried and said, Yeshkon olamo b'shah achas v'yeshkon olamo b'chama shonim. There are those who acquire the world to come in one instant, while for others it takes many years. Sheesh. Wow. Sheesh. Whew. That is the story of Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. Wow. One of the Asar Rugei Malchus, one of the 10 martyrs. We learned when did we learn about Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava? We learned about Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava recently, also one of the 10 martyrs. And now we just learned about Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon. Wow. Sheesh. Bruria de Visu de Rabbi Meir, Barti de Rabbi Chanina ben Teradyon Avoy. Bruria, Rabbi Meir's wife, Bruria, was also Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion's daughter. Amrloi, and she says to Rabbi Meir, Zila bi milsa diyazva achtoy bekuba shalzonas. It's very difficult for me that my sister has been forced into prostitution, and that right now she's basically forced to be in some, in a brothel someplace. Shakol tarkova de dinrei v'aza. So Rabbi Meir took 2 calves of dinar coins and he went on his way. Amr, he said, Eloha avid ba isura misavid nisa. If she has managed to avoid having any clients, then I will be able to succeed in doing a miracle. A miracle will happen. He of the isura, but unfortunately, if she has already seen clients, so then lo isavid la nisa, a miracle will not happen. Oza nokat nafshe. So he went and he kind of dressed up as if he was like one of some rider, some horseman, some person who came to the brothel. Omar la, and he says to her, Ashmi'ini li, and he says to her, okay, I'm interested. Amalei, she says to him, Tashtana ona, she says, I can't, I'm a nida. It's not a good, this isn't a good, I'm menstruating, this isn't a good time. Lo, where am I? Omar lo, he says to her, Misrach namirsach, I'll wait. Omar lo, she says to him, Nefishin tuva dishapirin minai. She says, why do you want to wait for me? There's a lot of other women over here who are more beautiful than I am. Find one of the others. Omar shmamina lo of the isura. Rabbi Meir concluded that she has not been with any men here at the brothel. That whoever comes to her, she says this to them. This is kind of what she always says to avoid having to actually sleep with anybody there. So Rabbi Meir knew that, okay, a miracle will happen. So he went to the guard over there of the brothel. Omar lei hava niala, and Rabbi Meir says to the guard, I want to take this girl with me. Omar lei mistafinu mimalchusa, and the guard says, I can't. I'm scared of the Romans. If they find out that she's escaped, it won't be good for me. Omar lei, Rabbi Meir says to the guard, Shkol tarkova de dinre, take 2 calves of dinars. Palga plachu, falga leave. Half of it pay as a bribe to the Romans, and half of it keep for yourself. Nabilach. Omelei, mechishalme, mayavid. But what do I do then when I run out of money? And then they'll just kill me at that point. Omelei, ema Eloha de Meir aneini. Meir advises the guard that in that case, simply say that the God of Meir answer me. Mitatzal, and you will be saved from whatever happens. And the guard says he's suspicious. He says, how do I know? Rabbi Meir says, no problem. I'll show you. There were a bunch of dogs around that would bite people. And he took and Rabbi Meir took a clod of earth and chucked it at the dogs to get them upset, to get them angry. Now they're going to come and bite. They were coming to bite. Omar, and I assume it's Rabbi Meir says, Eloha de Meir aneini. Shavku. And they left him alone. So the guard was convinced. And Rabbi Meir's sister-in-law was given to him, and they escaped. The Sof Ishtama Milsa Be Malka, and sure enough, they found out in Rome that this high-profile prostitute had escaped. Asura, and they took the guard. Askur is Kifa, and they took him up to the gallows, and they were going to kill him. Omer Eloha de Meir aneini. And he says, the God of Meir, answer me. Achtua, and they were unsuccessful. They were unable to kill him, Pashut. So they took him down from the gallows. Amrullah, they said to him, Mai, what is this Eloha de Meir aneini? Amrullah, you have a maise, and he told them everything. Told them the whole maise. Rabbi Meir became the most wanted fugitive in Rome. Amr, they said, and whoever sees this person, right, that a wanted poster, whoever sees this individual, Laise, bring him in. One time, they identified Rabbi Meir. Rat Abasre, and they started chasing him. Rat Mikamayu, and he started, what's the opposite of chasing? I guess running. We're not in Babelru. They started chasing him. He started running. Olive Zonis, and he, I guess ironically enough, he went into a brothel, because I guess they figured Rabbi Meir wouldn't run into there. There are those who say Bishule of the Kochavim Chaza. There are those who say that Itaka went and he ate Bishul Akum. We haven't learned yet much. We mentioned it the other day, but we haven't really learned about Bishul Akum yet in masechta Avodah Zarah, but we will. But basically, Yidden don't eat food that were cooked entirely by Nachrim in principle. There are exceptions. But anyway, so those who say that he ate Bishul Akum, Chaza, Bishule of the Chavim Chaza, he saw Bishul Akum, Tomaj Beha Umasak Ba, and he kind of dipped one finger in, but then actually ate the other. He didn't actually eat anything. He just made it look like he was eating. He put one finger in, but then actually licked the other finger. Those who say, Idmelu Kizona, that Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, came dressed up as a harlot, Karachte, and gave Rabbi Meir a big hug. Amri, they said, Chaz v'sholem, this can't be Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir Ava, lo Ava Avadachi. If this was Rabbi Meir, then he wouldn't have done anything. So basically, he somehow evaded them. Kam Arak also leBavel. This is interesting. I didn't realize this. That Rabbi Meir then went and he escaped to Bavel. I didn't realize that Rabbi Meir escaped to Bavel. Rabbi Meir, of course, is buried in Tiberias. Yeah, over Pesach, I had the good fortune, good merit of visiting Rabbi Meir's grave there in Tiberias. It's a whole big scene there, very big scene there. But it's also a good place to catch a minyan, and a good place to daven. Some say that he had to flee because of this Maisa, that he became a wanted fugitive in the Roman Empire. And there are those who say Maisa de Bruria, that apparently there was a Maisa with Bruria that the Gemara in Kiddushin says Noshim Daitos Kalos Aleim, that women there, Da'as is a little bit fragile, So she wanted to disprove it. And anyways, I don't know, somehow Meir then sent like a student to try to lure her to do an Aveira, and ultimately the student succeeded, and then she hanged herself, and he was embarrassed and he ran away. And Rashi mentions it. I don't know where that comes from, but anyways, so Rabbi Meir ran away to Bavel. Okay, that was the Maisa of Eloha de Meir aneini. Tanu Rabbonon, the rabbis taught, ha'olech it's tadinin v'lecharkom. A person who goes to stadiums like the Colosseum, the gladiators, v'lecharkom, or a siege, v'rasham, and he sees there, it's a nechoshim v'es a chaborin, nechoshim, what are those? The conjurers, v'es a chaborin, snake callers or something. Bukin, Umukin, Umulian, Velulian, Balorin, Salgorin, those people. It's a Moshav Leitzim. It's a place of like nudniks over there. The pasuk says, "Asher ish asher lo yolach v'gomer," right? And it says there, "Moshav Leitzim lo yotzav ki b'teras Hashem chevtzoi halmadta she'advarim halolim v'yinesu odom midei bittul Torah." Right? That these places are Moshav Leitzim, the places for nudniks and shmendriks. And it says that Asher Yishar Lo Yolach Moshav Leitzim Lo Yoshab, right? And it says don't sit with. Well, I messed that up a little bit. Asher Yishar Lo Halach Ba'atzis V'Sharm V'Derech Chatorim Lo Amud Moshav Leitzim Lo Yoshab. We can see a lot of different definitions today and tomorrow of this pasuk. But anyways, and it says Kiyim B'Teras Hashem Cheftze. So it says don't go to gladiators, study Torah. And if you don't, right, and if you go to the gladiators, it's bittul Torah. V'amini, but we have a contradiction. Holchin it's tadinin. We can go to the gladiators, to the Colosseum, because he can call out and save. Right, if you have a yid who's being forced to fight against a tiger or something. And like sometimes they would leave it up to the people, to the crowd, to decide the fate of the fighter, of the person in the ring. And if it's a yid there, then if there are yidden in the crowd, then they can yell and scream to save the yid from whatever beast he's being forced to fight. So therefore, because you might be able to save some yid in there. And also going to a siege could be permitted. Yishuv Medina, because if there are yidden in the besieged town, you could talk to the siegers to try to save those yidden. As long as he doesn't participate in the siege. Also, but if he's going to participate in the siege, that's not allowed. Kasha it's tadinin, kasha karkim akarkim. Okay, so we have a problem because first we said stadiums are bad, and then we said they're good. Then first we said sieges are bad, then we said they're good. I can understand the siege situation. It depends. If he's participating in the siege, osur. If he's not participating in the siege, mutter. It's tadina and it's tadinin kasha. Why did we say the stadiums are bad and then we said the stadiums are okay? Tanoi, it's takamachlokas. Tanoim the Tanya that learned by say ein ochin it's tadinin. We play moshav leitzim. We don't go to stadiums because it's a moshav leitzim, a place for shmendriks and nudniks. Reb Nosson matir. Reb Nosson permits it mipnei shnei dvarim for two reasons. One, because you could potentially yell and scream in the crowd to try and save any yidden that might be in the ring. And kind of a more sobering reason is that, well, if a yid was forced to fight against a wild animal there and the wild animal won, well, if there are yidden in the crowd, they could testify that unfortunately he was killed, and that his wife, his now widow, can remarry. Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught. Ein ochen the tartios v'lekarkosios. We don't go to theaters and circuses. Says Rabbi, we don't go to theaters and circuses because it's a gathering spot for Oivdei Kechavim. The Chacham says the Chachamim, if it's a place that they gather for Avodas Kechavim, then it's also on account of Avodas Kechavim. Makom she'em mezablin sham, and if they don't congregate there for Avodas Kechavim, also moshav leitzim. Well, still it's a moshav leitzim, and therefore don't. There's a place for shmendriks and nudniks, so don't participate from that angle. My benai, what's the nafkamina? Rabbi Chanina misura nosaf v'nosanik benai. The nafkamina is if you're going for business. According to Rabbi Meir, he's saying no, you can never go. It's simply always a I think he said it was a most of late. It's a zibul avodas kacham. Rabbi Meir says no, you can simply never go there. According to the chachamim, look, as long as it's not a place of avodas kachavim, and if you're going there focused on business, so that could be okay. There's Shimon ben Pazi dashed. What does it supposed to mean? Ashrei ish asher olach ba'atzis v'shoyim v'der chatoim le'yom moshe b'leitzim le'yoshav. What does this mean? That fourth praiseworthy is the fellow who did not go in the advice of the evil and in the ways of the sinners. He never stood, and in the seats of the nudniks and shmendriks he didn't sit. Well, if he never went, then how could he have stayed there? And since he never stayed there, how could he have sat there? And since he never sat there, how could he have been a shmendrik and a nudnik? If he goes there, he's going to end up staying there. If he stays there, he's going to sit there. And he sits there, he's going to be a nudnik and a shmendrik. And if you're a nudnik and a shmendrik, the pasuk says, "Im chochamto loch." What's this? Where's this pasuk? V'latzto levad chotiso. Yeah, I guess it'll be a nudnik and a shmendrik, and that's bad. Omer Rabbi Elazar says, anybody who's a nudnik and a shmendrik, Yisurin by an olive. Yisurin come to him, afflictions come to him. Shenemar Zabal says, Va'ata ata slotzitzu pen yechezkum mosreichem. Don't be a nudnik and a shmendrik, because then you will get Yisurin. Amelu, Rabban said to the rabbis, Matusa, Minaichu delotis slotzitzu, please. Rava says to the rabbis, please don't be nudniks and shmendriks, so that afflictions don't come to you. Amar of Katina says, of Katina called Mislotzitz, Mizonosov Mismaitin. Anybody who's a nudnik and a shmendrik, so it affects his parnosa. Shenemar Mishach Yodo Es Lotzitz, in that God and pulls back his hand, right? But God will withhold his hand for nudniks and shmendriks. Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish called Mislotzitz, Nofel Begehenim. Whoa. Anybody who's a nudnik and a shmendrik goes to hell. Shenemar, Zayd Yoyer late Shmo. So Yoyer is, wait, what was that? Zayd Yoyer late Shmo, late, nudnik and a shmendrik. Ose be'evras zodon, vein evra ele gehenim. Shenemar yom evra hayom hahu. Okay, he goes to hell. Amar Reb Oshia called Messiah, somebody who's haughty, nofel begehenim. Shenemar Zayd Yahir, haughtiness, late Shmo, also be'evras Zodlan vein evra ele gehenim shenemar yom evra hayom hahu. Amar Reb Chanina, so Reb Tanchum by Chaniloi, called Mislotze, it's anybody who's a nudnik and a shmendrik, gorim kloya la'olim, he causes destruction to the world. Shenemar va'ata tislotzu, don't be a nudnik and a shmendrik. Pen yechez kum osrechem ki kala v'nechrotza shamati, because I heard destruction. Amar Rabbi Elazar koshi shetchilas Yisurin v'sofo klei. It's bad because it starts out with afflictions and ends with destruction. So fortunately is the person who didn't go, the tartiers of the karkisos, to the theaters and the circuses. Somebody who doesn't go hunting with them. That he never went to the tachbulis, the schemes, whatever they're scheming about. Shema Yomar Adam, maybe a person will say, Hovel alachli tatiros v'karkasos v'amati bakingyon elch v'es gore b'shein. He says, oh, okay, fine. So I can't do this. I can't. I'll just sleep all the time. All right. If I can't do anything, I'll just sleep all the time. Tamalom v'torah yegayom v'lala. It says, no. Study the Holy Torah day and night, like we do here at Babylon Talmud. Chever, that was Daf Yud Ches, masechta Avodah Zarah. What a daf! A lot of stuff on this daf. The tragic story of Rabbi Chanina ben Trajan, one of the Asar Ruge Malchus, and how he, right, and that they burned him to death, and they killed his wife and sent his daughter to forced prostitution, and her rescue by her brother-in-law Rabbi Meir with his miraculous phrase Eloha de Meir aneini, and other interesting agaditas that we will continue with tomorrow. Peace.